My mom wore black to my anniversary party to protest that I didn't invite my brother. Then the truth unraveled fast. Hi, I'm Nathan. I'm 35, and at my own anniversary celebration, my mother showed up dressed like she was attending a funeral, not because someone died, but because her favorite son wasn't invited. That son being my older brother, Kevin, the golden child who's managed to ruin every milestone of my life and never faced a single consequence for it. She wore black. Black heels. Black shawl. Black lipstick like she was auditioning for a Victorian ghost play. While I stood under 1,000 tiny string lights next to my husband, smiling and trying to pretend everything was okay, my mother circled the venue like a shadow, whispering to guests. Can you believe she didn't invite her own brother? Except I'm not a she. I'm her son. And I didn't invite Kevin for one simple reason. He's a human wrecking ball with a criminal record and a talent for turning every celebration into a crisis. Let me explain how we got here. Kevin ruined my high school graduation by showing up drunk, throwing up on the sidewalk right as I went to get my diploma. Mom said he was just anxious about his future. At my college acceptance dinner, he ranted about how college was a scam, called me a corporate puppet, and walked out while I sat there crying in front of the waitress. Mom followed him, of course. Didn't even come back to pay the bill. My first job? Kevin told the entire table at our family dinner that I'd be fired within 6 months. My 21st birthday? He faked a panic attack halfway through because I was getting more attention than him. We never even cut the cake. The man literally proposed to his girlfriend of 3 days at my college graduation party, completely hijacking the event. Mom said it was sweet that he wanted to share his joy. When I got engaged, he tried to poison the well, telling my fiancée I was settling, and probably still in love with an ex. At my wedding, he wasn't even the best man but gave a 40-minute speech where he told fake, humiliating stories and said the marriage wouldn't last 2 years. And through all of this, my mom? She defended him. Every single time. He's just expressive. He's struggling. He's your brother. So no, Kevin didn't get an invite to my anniversary party. And when Mom asked where his was, I told her flat out. He's not welcome. I want one day without chaos. What happened next? What happened when she tried to hijack my celebration in his honor, when she stood up with a speech about forgiveness, and family, and letting go? Let's just say, she got exactly what she asked for. And then some. She clinked her glass like she was announcing a eulogy. Every guest turned. My husband squeezed my hand under the table. I could feel my jaw tightening already. She stood tall, posture like a statue, black silk blouse shimmering in the candlelight like a warning beacon. I just want to say something, she began, voice trembling in that calculated way she always used when she wanted sympathy. Family is everything. And sometimes, we make mistakes. Sometimes we forget how important forgiveness is, how important second chances are. Some people. She looked directly at me. Hold on to grudges. Over small, silly things. The room got quieter with every word. My aunt stopped mid-chew. My coworker from accounting looked visibly uncomfortable. Mom was building to something, that was obvious. I could feel the Kevin-shaped freight train approaching. Kevin, she said, almost whispering, wasn't invited tonight. And that's a tragedy. Because he's part of this family, and he deserved to be here just as much as anyone. I opened my mouth to speak, but I didn't have to. Beth did. Beth is my husband's cousin. Soft-spoken, always polite, never dramatic. Until now. She stood up slowly from her chair near the back and said, loud and clear, "Excuse me, are we talking about the same Kevin who got arrested at Thanksgiving for punching his stepdad? Because that wasn't a mistake. That was assault." The room froze. Mom blinked like someone slapped her with a wet towel. "That's not what happened," she muttered. "It was complicated." Amber, my childhood best friend, chimed in next. "No, I remember that. And I also remember Kevin stealing money from your dad's memorial fund. You cried about it for weeks. Don't act like that didn't happen." My heart was pounding. I didn't plan this. I hadn't asked anyone to speak up. But suddenly, one after another, they did. "My coworker? He showed up drunk to your office. Got you written up. My husband's brother? He called me before your wedding. Said you were cheating. Tried to talk me out of coming. My aunt? He faked cancer to get attention during your baby shower. And you still cried over it after the guests left." Each voice was a nail in the coffin of Kevin's golden boy image. Mom looked like the floor might swallow her. But the silence that came next? That was when everything truly changed. Because Lisa, my cousin who never speaks unless it's life or death, stood up. And the look on her face said death had just walked in. Lisa didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The entire room instinctively leaned in, like we were about to hear something sacred, or scandalous, or both. She looked at my mother and said flat out, "You need to tell them what really happened at Kevin's last intervention. The one you begged the family to keep quiet." You could have heard a fork drop. Even the background jazz track from the speakers seemed to fade. My mom's face went white. Lips parted. But Lisa didn't wait. "He didn't just show up drunk. He attacked Uncle James when we confronted him about the stolen credit cards. He broke his rib. Put him in the hospital. You paid the bill and told us to never speak about it again because it would ruin Kevin's future. You made James lie. You made all of us lie." There was a collective intake of breath. I literally felt the air change. And then, like some kind of courtroom drama peeling back layers, another voice joined in from the back of the room. A cousin I barely knew. "2 years ago, Kevin borrowed $5,000 from me. Said it was for rehab. Next week I saw him at the casino. Told your mom. She said to be patient, he was working on himself. Never paid me back. Never even apologized. Aunt Jan. Last Christmas, he came to my house, demanded money. I said no. He stole jewelry from my bedroom. Your mother returned it and asked me not to press charges. Each story came like a stone dropping in water. Quiet. Then rippling. Then everything shaking. Mom stood there like a statue. No interruptions now. She knew it was too late. My husband's best friend stepped in. 6 months ago, Kevin called me asking for money, pretending you were in trouble. Used your name. Tried to scam me. I turned to my mother. How much money have you given him? She didn't answer. Just stared at her plate like it might save her. But she didn't have to speak because my aunt answered for her. She took out a second mortgage on her house to cover his debts. The number? Hundreds of thousands. And then finally my mother cracked. I did what any mother would do, she said, voice trembling. I protected my child. Lisa? Didn't let her finish. No. You enabled him. And you let him destroy your other child in the process. That was the moment. Not when Kevin ruined one of my birthdays, or weddings, or jobs. Not even when Mom showed up in funeral couture to my party. It was now. The moment 20 years of secrets, lies, and excuses collapsed under the weight of truth. The dam had burst, and there was no going back. My mother stood frozen in the center of the room, the same woman who used to kiss scraped knees and make grilled cheese on rainy days, now completely exposed. No one was comforting her. No one stepped in to smooth it over. Not this time. Beth stood again. I have one more thing to add, she said, voice like a scalpel. Everyone turned to her. You could feel the tension coiling again. Kevin's arrest at Thanksgiving? That wasn't his first. It was his third in 2 years. Your mom's been bailing him out. Quietly. Hiding the court dates. Hiding the paperwork. My legs were shaking, but I stood up too. I want to know something, I said, looking directly at my mother. How long have you been lying to all of us? How long have you been making excuses while he steals and manipulates and threatens people? Still, she said nothing. That's when my coworker, who'd only known me a few years, spoke up. Your son came to our office. Drunk. He nearly got him fired. You didn't call to apologize. You called my boss to try and cover for Kevin. My aunt pushed her chair back with a screech. You've let him hurt every person in this family while telling the rest of us to be understanding. Her voice cracked. And we did. We were. And it cost us everything. There was nowhere left for Mom to run. She finally muttered. He just needed help. He's always struggled. I didn't know what else to do. Lisa shook her head. No. You knew. You just chose him. Again and again. And every time you picked him, you told the rest of us we didn't matter. My hands curled into fists. I could feel my pulse in my ears. I looked right at her and said, if you walk out that door right now, you're choosing Kevin over me one last time. And I'll finally know exactly where I stand. She stood still, hand on her purse, trembling. She didn't turn. She didn't argue. My husband got up quietly and walked to her, said softly, You've hurt him for 29 years. If you can't be happy for us tonight, then please leave. And she did. She walked out of the venue, black heels clicking like punctuation on a sentence that had finally ended. The room held its breath, then my mother-in-law stood up and raised her glass. To Nathan, she said, voice ringing clear. A man who deserves to be celebrated. Finally. Without drama. And the room, my room, raised their glasses too. After the toast, people didn't rush to the dance floor or awkwardly shuffle back to their seats. They came to me, one by one. Beth first. She hugged me tight, real tight, and whispered, I should have said something years ago. Her voice cracked on the word. Years. Then Amber, eyes glassy but furious, said, I watched you go through hell with that man. And I let your mom make me feel like it was just family drama. I'm so sorry. Even my quietest cousin, the one who never speaks above a whisper, said, You weren't imagining it. We all saw it. We just didn't want to be the ones to say it out loud. Person after person. Family, friends, coworkers, people who'd known me for decades and others who'd only known me a year, all came forward to confess that they'd seen Kevin's behavior, felt uncomfortable, even angry about it, but stayed silent because of my mother. Because she made it seem like calling him out meant you were cruel. Or disloyal. Or worse, unforgiving. But now the seal was broken. And every story they told made me realize I wasn't crazy. I hadn't been overreacting for 29 years. I hadn't been dramatic. I hadn't been holding grudges. I'd been alone. Trapped in a narrative where Kevin was the one who needed grace, and I was the one who needed to get over it. That lie was dead now. Publicly buried. Lisa came over, cheeks still flushed, and hugged me. I should have told you about the intervention, she said into my shoulder. But your mom swore me to silence. Said it would tear the family apart. I pulled back. It already was torn. You just finally stopped pretending we couldn't see the stitches. Lisa nodded, wiping her face. I'm not protecting secrets anymore. Not if it means someone like you gets hurt again. By the time the music started playing, the atmosphere had shifted completely. We weren't walking on eggshells anymore. No one was glancing at the door, expecting Kevin to burst in and start a scene. No one was pretending this was a happy family event while silently bracing for impact. We danced. We laughed. People actually celebrated. And for the first time in decades, I didn't feel like the background character at my own event. I felt like the main character. Like I finally mattered. Like the piece was real. The next morning, I woke up to 47 unread messages. At first, I thought it was the group chat blowing up with photos from the party. But no. The tone was different. Some texts were sweet. Cousins and coworkers saying they were proud of me. That they couldn't stop thinking about what Lisa said. That they saw my mom in a new light. That I was brave. But then the guilt trippers started chiming in. A second cousin. Was that really the place for all that drama? An uncle I hadn't spoken to in a year. Your mom looked devastated. You couldn't have handled this privately? A message from someone saved in my phone only as Aunt M, Kevin's fan club president, you embarrass your poor mother at a party she attended for you. Think about that. I didn't respond to any of them. Not yet. Because then I saw it. The long, rambling text from my mother. Sent at 3:12 a.m. It started with, I can't believe what you let happen to me tonight. And just got worse. She went on and on about how cruel it was to let people attack Kevin when he wasn't even there to defend himself. How she raised 2 children, not just one. How I humiliated her in front of the family, and how the celebration turned into a witch hunt. Not one mention of the arrests. Not one acknowledgement of the stolen money. Not a single word about the intervention or the broken rib or the faked cancer. Just pure self-pity. Pure deflection. I read it 3 times. Each time slower. Each time angrier. My husband looked up from the couch. You okay? I handed him the phone. He read the message, sighed through his nose like he was holding back a rant, and then looked at me. I said, She still doesn't get it. He nodded. She doesn't want to get it. I stared at the screen. For a minute, I thought about writing a long, clear, heartfelt reply. Something that laid it all out again. Like I had so many times before. But then I stopped myself. She didn't need another explanation. She needed to sit in the truth. So I typed. I didn't let anyone attack Kevin. I let people tell the truth. If that makes you look bad, maybe ask yourself why. I hit send. No punctuation. No emotion. Just truth. She didn't reply. For the first time in my life, that felt like a gift. 2 days later, Lisa called me. Before I could even say hello, she launched into a nervous apology. I shouldn't have dropped that story at your party without warning. Your mom in black? The speech? It pushed me over the edge. I let her talk, let her ramble through the guilt, and then cut in gently. Lisa, you didn't ruin anything. You freed me. She went quiet. I had no idea how deep it all went. I thought Kevin just ruined parties and lied about me. I didn't know he broke bones and scammed relatives and faked cancer. Lisa's voice cracked. I did. And I stayed quiet. Because she made me feel like it was my job to protect him. I sighed. She did that to all of us. We talked for over an hour. About the manipulation. The guilt. The way my mother turned Kevin into a weapon and me into a shield. By the end, Lisa sounded lighter, like something had physically lifted off her chest. She even said she was back in therapy and finally unpacking what that family dynamic did to her, too. That evening, my aunt called with her own confession. She said that for the last 5 years, Kevin had been stealing prescription pills out of her bathroom during family gatherings. At first, she thought she was imagining it. Then, one Thanksgiving, she caught him red-handed. Pills stuffed in his coat pocket. He cried. She said. Begged me not to tell anyone. Said he was getting help. She told my mother. You can guess what happened next. She said it was just a phase. That he'd grow out of it. I didn't even feel shock anymore. Just this cold, exhausted sort of understanding. It wasn't just favoritism. My mother had been covering for criminal activity. Letting him spiral. Letting us all suffer. And still painting it as motherly love. After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table with my head in my hands. My husband walked in, handed me tea, and said softly, I know that look. That's the face of someone who just got hit with another how bad it really was truth bomb. I nodded. Want to scream? Punch a pillow? Break a plate? No, I said. I want to write boundaries. So we did. Right there at the kitchen table, we wrote a list of rules. Real ones. With consequences. Kevin was not welcome in our home. If anyone tried to bring him, they'd be asked to leave. We wouldn't attend events if he was present. No more guilt tripping, no more lectures, no more. But he's family. If you can't respect our boundaries, you don't get access to our lives. We wrote it all down, edited it, then hit send. The email went to my mom. And to Kevin. Subject line. Family boundaries going forward. Then we shut our laptops and poured wine. That was the night I finally exhaled. Her reply came fast. Less than an hour after we hit send, my mother responded. Paragraphs and paragraphs of the same tired script I've heard since I was old enough to understand what favoritism looked like in a hallway full of birthday balloons. She opened with, This is not how family works. She accused me of cruelty. Of punishing Kevin for having a harder life. She called my boundaries a betrayal. She said I was tearing the family apart over petty grievances and old wounds. And that real love means forgiveness, not exile. And then she dropped the guilt bomb I'd been bracing for. Your father would be ashamed of you if he was still alive. My husband read it over my shoulder and muttered, That's rich. The man who cried at your wedding because you finally stood up for yourself? I stared at her email. Not one word acknowledging what Kevin had done. Not one apology for wearing black to my anniversary. Not even a nod to the fact that she'd helped cover up literal crimes. Just another lecture. Just more manipulation dressed in motherly concern. But something was different this time. I wasn't 13 anymore, sitting on the stairs listening to Kevin scream while she whispered, He's just overwhelmed. I was 35. A husband. A homeowner. A man with a spine I had built bone by bone, after years of being told I didn't need one. And I wasn't interested in emotional backflips anymore. So I didn't send another email. I called my therapist. In our next session I cried. Hard. Not because I missed my mother. But because I was mourning the version of her I always wished existed. The version who would say, I'm sorry. The version who would one day finally see me. The version who would call Kevin out and say, You've done enough damage. She wasn't real. She never was. And it was time I stopped waiting for her to show up. My therapist called it grieving a living parent, A phrase that wrapped itself around my ribs and squeezed until the ache turned into acceptance. I didn't need my mother to validate my pain anymore. I needed to move forward. Without her permission. 3 days later, Kevin called. I shouldn't have answered. But after everything, part of me still wanted to hear what he had to say. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was the final flicker of denial. Maybe I just wanted closure. What I got? A full-throttle screaming match, with only one person yelling. He didn't even say hello. He launched in mid-rant, voice slurred, furious. You turned everyone against me. You ruined my life, you little snake. He called me names I won't repeat. Accused me of orchestrating some grand betrayal. Said the stories at the party were all lies and out of context. I let him rant. Let the bow spill. I didn't say a word. Until he slowed, breathing hard into the phone, like he was trying to suck the air out of my lungs. Then I said calmly, every word they said was true, Kevin. You know it. I know it. And I'm not protecting you anymore. He started again, louder this time, something about jealousy, and Mom always loved me more. That last part? That didn't sound like a weapon. It sounded like a confession. So I hung up. That's when the messages started. Text after text, each more disturbing than the last. You'll regret this. I know where you live. I'm going to ruin you like you ruined me. Apologize. Or I'll make you wish you had. My husband saw the texts. He didn't say anything at first. Just took my phone, sat down at the kitchen table, and started taking screenshots. 15 texts. 2 voicemails. 1 direct threat to show up at my work. We need to file a police report, he said, not even looking up. I hesitated. Do you think that'll make it worse? It's already worse, he said. This is what consequences look like. And we're not going to wait for him to escalate. That night, we walked into a police station with a folder of screenshots, printouts, and voicemail recordings. I expected eye rolls. A bored desk cop. But the officer's face changed when he saw Kevin's name. 3 prior arrests, he said. 2 for assault. 1 for theft. You're not overreacting. He documented everything. Took our statements. Gave us a case number. Told us we could apply for a restraining order within 48 hours. Do it, he said. If he shows up at your house, call us. The next morning, they called to say Kevin had been officially warned. He cursed at the officer, but agreed to back off. For now. But the peace didn't last long. Because 2 hours later my mother called, and started screaming. You called the police on your brother? Are you trying to destroy him? I held the phone away from my ear, stunned by the volume. Do you care that he might end up in jail? Do you care that he could lose everything? I said, he chose this, Mom. I'm just finally choosing myself. You're tearing the family apart. No, I said. You did that. 29 years ago. When you decided only one of your children mattered. And I hung up. For the last time. The restraining order was approved that Friday. Kevin never showed up again. Not at my house. Not at my work. Not at any family event. And the silence that followed felt like oxygen after a lifetime underwater. My mother didn't call. Didn't write. She sent 1 card for my birthday, generic message, no apology, no acknowledgement. I didn't respond. I didn't cash the check inside. I wasn't interested in symbolic gestures anymore. Instead, I focused on the people who stayed. Lisa. My aunt. Friends who stepped forward once the fog cleared. We started new traditions, quiet dinners, family game nights, holidays without dread. No one walked on eggshells. No one asked, should we invite Kevin? Peace wasn't dramatic. It was just consistent. My therapist called it survivor's peace, what happens when you finally leave the chaos and realize how much it stole from you. And yeah, sometimes I still grieve. Not just for the brother I never had, but for the mother I wished I did. But I also look at my husband, how he holds my hand, listens without judgment, reminds me that protecting my peace isn't cruelty. It's survival. It's love. And this time, it's mine. I used to think choosing myself meant shutting the door. But now I see, it just meant locking it behind the people who broke in too many times. The porch light's still on. The doorbell still works. But only love gets through. The rest can stay outside. Forever.